Sup, everyone? We got Joey D and Timmy B back at it again for the next episode of the Flea Flicker. We've had a lot of news happening in the NFL as we're recording this the day after the 53-man rosters have been announced. So a couple of cuts, also a couple of big injuries. Well, one big injury, not industry, that we'll get into. But Joey D, my friend, how are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great, Tim. It is football season, man. The Gamecocks play on
Woo.
Saturday. College football is back, and then just a week from tomorrow, we'll be watching the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, and hopefully the Cowboys getting destroyed, and just starting that season off on the best foot possible. So I am excited, man. Did my first fantasy draft the other
Woo.
day, went great. The guy picking first, I was second. Someone else was going first. I thought he would take McCaffrey, of course. This guy takes Tom Brady.
Mm.
So I get McCaffrey. What an idiot. I guess he's a Buccaneers fan, but it's been great, man. I love this time of year.
Hey man, yeah, football is definitely in the air for sure, and we're excited for not only the college season to be starting, but professional football as well in the next couple of weeks or 10 days or so here. But before we get started into a little bit of news, not too much news, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button to like this video and then subscribe to the channel to show us that you want this to happen more often. Quite frankly, and we appreciate all the support that we've gotten. Now, Joe, we're going to hop into some news. The big news from preseason week 3 is Ravens running back JK Dobbins, second-year running back out of Ohio State, tore his ACL while playing the Washington football team. Man, it is definitely a brutal injury. Why do I keep saying industry, Joe? I don't know why. But an absolutely brutal injury. Me being a Ravens fan, I have my own thoughts, but Joe, I would like to hear from your thoughts first from a non-biased Ravens fan perspective. What were your thoughts on the J.K. Dobbins industry, and how do you think this is going to unfold with our offense?
Well, you just said industry again, let me point out for you, Tim. But um but just from the outside looking in, I feel like this puts even more pressure on Lamar Jackson. I mean, a lot of the weapons around him that the Ravens have, gone out of their way to get for him already injured. I mean, Rashad Bateman's had an injury. Sammy Watkins has been injured as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he
Um,
has. I completely forgot he was on our team until I saw a tweet today.
Right, right. And now JK Dobbins. So, it's gonna be tough for Lamar, to, just kind of do what he's done again, and put the team on his back. So, I'm worried about their success in the playoffs once again. I mean, without, a dynamic guy like JK and, a consistent threat on the outside that, Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins to a degree can hopefully be. It's going to be tough for Lamar to, just, kind of keep doing it week after week and, avoid the injury bug as well. And, just be able to have that sustained success. But, the Ravens are, a very deep and talented team. I mean, 20-0 in the preseason.
Woo!
Congratulations.
We did it.
It speaks to the coaching of John Harbaugh and his staff, and the drafting of Ozzie Newsome, or Eric DaCosta now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and just that front office being able to find talent, all over the place. So if there's a team that's equipped to overcome these injuries, I think it is the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get more to this in our next episode where we do hop into our own divisions, the NFC East and AFC North. But it definitely is a brutal injury. JK was obviously going to be the number one back this year. He was getting more involved in the passing game, and it could have been potentially Lamar rushed for 1,000, JK rushed for 1,000. But we know Lamar is still probably going to run for 800, 900 yards, maybe even 1,000 again. We know Gus Edwards, who generally was the 500, 600-yard third back or third rusher, I'll say, not back because Lamar is a quarterback. He'll be increasing the role. I trust Gus Edwards. We got Tyson Williams, former Gamecock who transferred to BYU, who had a great preseason, so he's doing well. And you know what? It does suck, but hey, we're gonna manage. We'll get by that. So that's it on the big J.K. Dobbins injuries. We'll get more into that when we talk about our own divisions, as I said, Joe, about what the outlook is looking like. But you are right. We do have a bunch of industries. No, I'm just kidding. We have a bunch of injuries on the team so far, especially on the offense. So hopefully that doesn't affect the rest of the industry. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. And as I said, Joe, We are recording this the day after the 53-man rosters were announced. The biggest news from cut day actually came relatively early in the day as well. It wasn't right at
Hmm.
that 4 o'clock deadline. It was bam, right in the morning. The Patriots have released quarterback Cam Newton, which means Mac Jones is the presumed starter. I don't know if he's been announced quarterback one yet, but obviously you don't take a guy 15th overall, cut your other his competition, then not make him the starter. So that's
Right.
huge news, huge news. Joe, your thoughts on Mac Jones being QB1 in New England officially, kind of.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that this is the direction they went. I will say that in joint practices with the Eagles and Patriots, the reporting was that Cam was not looking very good, and Mac Jones had an exceptional preseason. I mean, I think that he was PFF's highest graded rookie ever in the preseason, and so you really couldn't have done much more to make a case for him getting a shot to start. And I mean, he's an Alabama quarterback. He says all the right things. He knows how to prepare. And I think that with Cam Newton kind of having that non-vaccinated close contact or missed a test or whatever, so he missed 5 days of practice. I think that really affected things because Mac Jones got a lot of reps with the ones, and obviously proved that he was able to handle it. So it's very interesting that they kind of felt like Mac Jones was better for them right now, as well as long term. But I'm surprised they cut Cam Newton. I guess
Yeah.
they thought that maybe he'd be a distraction or something. I really don't know. I mean, I think that Cam still is a good quarterback and can produce for a team. I mean, he's definitely there's definitely not 32 quarterbacks in the NFL that are better than Cam Newton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that whether it's a team with an older quarterback, maybe as like sort of like a Jameis Winston type year, with the Saints last year, where he comes in behind a veteran who maybe is on their last legs, and he can still have a role. Um, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see, how where he ends up and how that plays out. But I still think that Cam Newton has some left in the tank in him, and I don't think the Patriots should have cut him.
Yeah, I don't know if they should have cut him, but I definitely do agree with the decision of having Mac Jones be the quarterback one. I was actually reading a couple of articles amongst the past couple of weeks and months from a lot of experts basically saying like, why should we have all these first round rookie quarterbacks sit and wait a year or two, much like Aaron Rodgers is? Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers very, very successful in his career. But a lot of them are just like, throw him to the Wolves. The team's going to suck anyways. Just let him get the experience now. Like, why, So I think the Patriots will be struggling a little bit this year. I mean, it's still a Bill Belichick team. They went 8-8 last year. They got a couple of pieces back, but from the COVID list and everything. But this is still going to be like a 7, 8, maybe 9 win team, Joe. So might as well throw Mac Jones, get the experience. That way, when you build up that roster, like you were saying for Jalen Hurts, let Jalen Hurts start this year, or kind of toward the end of last year, and saying, all right, cool, like we saw some promise out of Jalen Hurts. Yes, we didn't have the ideal record that we wanted, but now we know what pieces we need in order to make him successful. So I'm all for it. If you're drafting a quarterback early, especially in the first round, you got to start him immediately. Is my thoughts. Any final words on Cam and Mac, and responding to what I said?
No, I mean, I definitely agree with the thought process that, you got to start your rookie quarterback as soon as possible. I mean, that's the advantage of having, a quarterback on a rookie deal. I mean, if they're putting up, you know, top stats, I mean, then it's a very affordable deal, compared to the production that, they're producing. So if Mac Jones can do well and, outperform his contract, then the Patriots can continue to build up the team around him, and have a window to just stack up the roster around Mac Jones while he's still on his rookie contract. And I mean, that's ultimately the goal for all of these teams that have drafted rookie quarterbacks or have a quarterback that's young and still on their rookie contract, like the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, for example.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that is it. And we were just talking right before we were recording, Joe, in terms of notable cuts or anything like that. Now, obviously, there are some names that we're familiar with, but Cam Newton was like the big cut. Other than that, everything was pretty normal. I was seeing some tweets and stuff about some players here and there that I do recognize, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, probably came in as the fifth or sixth wide receiver running back, anyways. But I think another key is not too many people were claimed off of waivers. The Ravens essentially brought back almost everybody. We did lose a couple of people, but we got back key pieces like quarterback Trace McSorley. But in terms of the waivers as well, Joe, there wasn't really too much. Like you were saying, your dog Travis Fulgham who got cut, so not surprisingly, but he made it back to the practice squad. So like there weren't that many big waiver claims either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was expecting the Eagles to be a little bit more active on the waiver wire. I mean, they had they were sixth in the order. I mean, they're because they were so bad last year, and that doesn't necessarily happen very often, especially for the Eagles. So you would think that they'd be a little bit more active in that regard, but no waiver claims, and none of their cuts got claimed. So like you said, Travis Fulgham is back. Jordan Howard is still on the practice squad. A lot of guys that, I think will have roles for certain games throughout the season or at least have potential long term. So I'm glad that, the moves that we made were made. But like you said, just, nobody really got claimed or, any other crazy big names got cut or, I felt like Travis Fulgham was one of the bigger names that got cut. And like I said, he's still on the practice squad. So, how much news really is that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there have been some wide receivers as well. Like I'm looking at Brashad Perriman, who got cut by the Lions, now signed
Right.
with the Bears. Like there was a lot of those type of names where you're like, oh yeah, like I know who that is. Like that's wide receiver, tight end, running back, you outside linebacker, whoever. But and like for the Ravens, we terminated the contract of Anthony Levine. As well as a couple other veteran defensive players, but we terminated the contract, so we were just able to be like, "All right, cool, but you're going to be on the practice squad. You just need to sign like a new
Right.
deal real quick." So, but yeah, and then I guess the final thing I have, especially since I just said Rashad Perriman and the Lions, they don't have a kicker right now, Joe.
Yeah. Gonna be interesting to see how that goes. We can only hope that this is, Dan Campbell just being like, I hate kickers, and I'm just gonna go for two every time. I would love to see it. But I think that the more likely scenario is that, they're just waiting to see who gets cut, with the waivers and,
They
who they
do
can just
have a
pick
new
up.
kicker. His name is Austin Siebert. He was just claimed a couple of hours ago. It looks like.
I'm gonna take a guess. Was he on the Browns?
He was on the Browns. He was the kicker for the Browns, but he was
Nice.
actually now on the Bengals. He lost the
Okay.
kicking battle to Evan McPherson. So if you're looking for a deep fantasy sleeper kicker, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Gotcha.
Definitely
Gotcha.
not Austin
Well,
Siebert
yeah.
of the Lions because we know what that.
No.
We talked about that not too long ago.
Nope. So there we go. They've got the kicker now, Tim.
Absolutely. Now we're going to hop into two divisions that we already talked about. Now, Joe, we talked about the AFC South and the NFC South way back when in like March and April. When we were like, cool, we got 8 divisions, 8 weeks until the draft, and then we did the South, and then we stopped. So this is probably going to be a little bit quicker, Joe, because honestly, my opinion really hasn't changed from these divisions. Obviously, we can talk a little bit more about the rosters and the schedules and everything like that. Now, do you want to talk about the NFC or the AFC first? I'll let you pick this one.
Let's start with the AFC South. I think that one's going to be a little bit easier.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the AFC South, defending AFC South champions. The Tennessee Titans finished last year with the same record as the Colts. They just happened to win the tiebreaker over them, lost to the Ravens in the wild card round, and they got Julio Jones, Joe. Try saying that 5 times. That's Julio Jones, Joe. Julio Jones, Joe. Julio Jones, Joe. But they got a great offensive weapon in Julio Jones. They still have Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill. They did lose Arthur Smith, and we did talk about that Julio Jones trade, but they did promote from within, so it should be a very similar system indeed. But with the Carson Wentz and some of the Colts injuries right now, it looks like Carson Wentz could be back a little bit earlier than we expected, Joe. But I still think that this is the Titans' division to lose.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, you know, we've talked about this Tennessee offense. I mean, they've got two phenomenal wide receivers and Julio Jones and AJ Brown, and then Derrick Henry back there. And Ryan Tannehill's done such a good job of just distributing the ball well to those guys, especially off of play action. So I think that, if the defense can get cleaned up, then, this can be a very good team.
Mhm.
But I think it's clearly, the best and, the safest bet in the division.
Sure.
I mean, with the Colts, we don't know what Carson Wentz is going to be this year still. I mean, it's his first year on a new team coming off of, the worst year of his career. He he had surgery a couple weeks ago, so he hasn't been able to practice as much. And now he's a close contact due to COVID, so he's out of practice as well. And what was supposed to be his first day back for full team periods. So, he just hasn't had an opportunity to get that chemistry with his teammates. And then on top of that, there's been multiple other players as well that are dealing with the injury bug, like Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and now T.Y. Hilton, who I believe just landed on the short-term IR with a neck injury. He had surgery on that, I believe, today. So I mean, this Colts team, like I've said it before, I don't feel like the offensive weapons are really there, even when they're at full strength, and they're not. So I don't really understand why people are this sold or confident that Carson Wentz is gonna, resurrect the Colts, and he's just gonna be, so much better than he was last year. I think he'll be better than he was last year because it'll be hard for him to be the 32nd ranked quarterback two
Right.
years in a row. But I don't think he'll ever be as good as 2017 Carson. So it'll be somewhere in the middle, and I think that at best that might be a wild card spot for the Colts, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But then I think the Jags are right behind the Colts. I don't think very highly of Urban Meyer. We'll see how that experiment goes. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the number one pick in the draft, and they still have a lot of weapons around him, even without Travis Etienne after the injury. So I think the Jags are, a team potentially on the rise in a couple areas, but I don't know if this Urban Meyer experiment is going to work out, and how much that might hinder Trevor Lawrence's growth, and the team's window as a whole, like we talked about with him on his rookie deal. Um, and then I don't think there's much we need to say about the Texans. I
No.
mean, they're still a mess. They might not win a single game this year. Nothing to really feel good about anywhere on that roster. So, you know, the best thing that, the Texans can really hope for is that, this Deshaun Watson drama gets cleared up quick, so that they can ship him off and start rebuilding with a bunch of picks that they can get for him. So that's, really the only thing to look forward to if I'm a Houston fan right now.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. I pretty much agree with you. Everything. I mean, in terms of the Titans, looking at the depth chart right now, we already talked about the offense. Defense probably has one of the better linebacking cores in the NFL with Harold Landry, Jayon Brown, Rashad Evans, and now Bud Dupree. That's going to be dangerous. Secondary is, okay, a little bit of a weak spot, a little bit young with some of the defensive backs, but the safeties are good. D line also questionable, but I think they're going to be right there in that conversation again, that 10, 11, 12, or probably 11, 12, 13 with the additional game. And we're going to be talking, they're going to be battling with Ravens, Browns, Bills, and Chiefs for that upper tier of the AFC for sure. Now it's going to be a huge factor because last year they were the 4 seed. Obviously, the 5th seed was the Ravens. I can see that happening again this year, where the 5th seed, the first wild card, is either going to right as of right now, I'm probably going to say it's going to be the Ravens or Browns, whoever doesn't get that tiebreaker. So it's like you want to be that 3 seed, so maybe you are playing the Colts, or maybe you are playing a Steelers team, or an up and coming Dolphins team, and you're not playing a Super Bowl contender in a team like the Ravens or Browns for sure. Colts, you nailed it. I don't like obviously Carson Wentz is an upgrade, Joe. You know better than anybody else being an Eagles fan, but even with Carson Wentz, this could be a very similar offense to Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers is a very serviceable quarterback, unless you're Josh, who hates him. But there were times last year where the offense looked really good, and then there were times where the offense was like, "Bro, what are we doing out here?" And I think that you're going to see that with Carson Wentz as well a lot of times this year. Once he is healthy, ready to go and actually practicing. But sorry, Joe, it still looks like it's going to be a second round pick from the Colts.
Yeah.
And then the Jaguars, you nailed it too. Like, and that's what I was saying with the first round quarterbacks. Now, obviously, you're taking 1-1 Trevor Lawrence generational talent, so it's pretty easy to name him the starter. But the Jaguars are going to get 4, 5, or 6 wins anyways. Anything more than that is probably house money, given their current roster and their current team. But let Trevor Lawrence go out there, let him get that experience. I love Laviska Shenault. I love the wide receivers that they do have. The running game could use a little bit of work. We'll see about James Robinson, and we'll also see about Urban Meyer. College coaches in the NFL are very hit or miss. Most of the time,
Right.
miss.
Yeah, and one other thing about Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer, they in the whole off season, Urban Meyer set this up as an open competition between Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence. They spent the whole offseason cutting Trevor Lawrence's reps in half to compete with Gardner Minshew, only to trade Gardner Minshew for a sixth round draft pick
Right.
at after the preseason is over. I don't understand that logic. If you're gonna trade Gardner Minshew, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is gonna be the starter week one. Like give him all the reps. Don't stunt his growth any more than you might already be. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would do that. And it's in my opinion another example of Urban Meyer, just not really handling the situation the best of his ability.
Absolutely, and they got a sixth-round pick, but Joe, as you said, they were splitting time all the time. And now they traded Minshew after Lawrence was named the number one quarterback, the starting quarterback. But if you had a guy who was competing for the starting job, why wouldn't you keep him as the backup? Like he
Right.
had plenty of reps with the ones, plenty of reps with the ones in preseason. Now their backup is CJ Beathard, who has plenty of NFL experience. But I don't know. That was interesting. But hey, Joe, that's a very electric quarterback room up in Philadelphia with Joe
That's
Flacco, with
right.
Gardner Minshew. So
That's right. I
um,
love it. I love it.
but yeah, the Jaguars, like looking at their defense, so they still have all these. They still have a couple of decent names from when they went to the AFC Championship, and they added Josh Allen. They got Chazon, the guy C.J. Henderson. So again, like the Titans, very young secondary. But I do like what they're kind of doing with the linebackers, a little bit on the D line as well. So obviously, I'm not predicting the Jaguars to go 1-15 or 1-16 now with the 17th game. But they are still going to be struggling a little bit and probably will be picking in the top 10 next year. And yeah, there's really nothing to say about the Houston Texans, Joe. I mean, even if Deshaun Watson was the starting quarterback, the rest of the roster is bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. It is rough. There's not a position group that I would feel good about on that roster whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I could make an argument for the running backs because it's Mark Ingram, David Johnson, Philip Lindsay, and Rex Burkhead. So guys that we know
Okay,
can do the
yeah,
job. But
like
other than that, like I'm still not confident given
but
the
still like
offensive
that's
line. Yeah.
that's four veteran running backs that like they're investing way too many resources in running back for
Right.
absolutely no reason. I mean, those guys are not going to be on their roster in 2 years. I mean, I yeah no I like yeah I guess like maybe if like all they're doing this year is just running the football and like having a
Yeah.
veteran rotation and that's it. I mean, like I can see that as like a maybe a somewhat effective strategy like this season, but for the long term and just overall, I mean, I just hate that Texans roster so much. I'm not taking a single Texan in fantasy.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's just beside the Deshaun Watson stuff as well. But like I said, even if he started a couple of wins, maybe at most 4 or 5, and likewise, even if he does get traded, like like that's such a whole big thing. But also shout out to their head coach David Coley. He gave the Ravens a third round pick because he was a Ravens assistant, and through the Rooney Rule, we get a third round pick next year. So thank you so much, and best of luck. The guy's 65, 66. This will probably be his only opportunity to be a head coach, so I don't blame him for taking a shit show of a job, needless to say, in Houston. But I wish him the best of luck, and you know, we'll see, Joe. But AFC South, I mean, Titans 1, Colts 2, Jags 3, Texans 4. I know we're doing our official predictions next week, but that's not going to change in my eyes.
Yeah, yeah, same here.
Alrighty. Well, now let's move on to the NFC South. And again, my opinion hasn't changed since we talked about it back in March or April. I still think Tampa Bay is number one, obviously. Might even still predict them to go undefeated. That bold prediction is still kind of lingering in my head. But I mean, any words on the Bucks? They're returning all the starters. They brought in Giovanni Bernard. This is a good team, Joe. I mean, do you see any shock that the Bucks aren't good this year?
I don't. I mean, it took them a little bit to get up to speed last year, but once Tom Brady, kind of got the chemistry with his with not only his playmakers but with the coaching staff and the play calling, we just really saw pretty much an unstoppable offense because they're so loaded with weapons and Tom Brady can distribute the ball to everyone, just perfectly. So, Yeah, no, I don't see this team being, you know, like I see this team being one of the best teams in the NFL next year. I don't see it being particularly close with anyone else in their division. I mean, I think that the Saints will probably be the second best team in this division, but I don't think that that it's going to be close at all.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their schedule right now, Joe. I mean, their toughest game is probably at the Rams in week 3. Then they play at the football team after a bye. So you got 2 weeks to prepare for a football team. And then they host the Bills in December. But this division is not as strong as it once was in the past couple of years. They're playing the NFC East. So that's, I mean, they do. Tom Brady does return to New England in week 4. I'm sure that might be a rough, first half or whatever. But, once emotions aside, I think he's going to turn on the Jets in that game for sure. We'll talk about that in week 4. But this is one of the easier schedules in the NFL, and these are the defending Super Bowl champs. Now, there has not been a defending Super Bowl champion since Tom Brady's Patriots in 2003, 2004. And obviously, we'll talk about this next week, but you at least had to put him in the NFC Championship game right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I mean, until they prove to us otherwise, until he proves that he can't do it anymore, why would we be picking against him at this point?
Yeah, and that was me last year when I predicted the Patriots winning the division last year, even without Tom Brady. I was like, "Hey, look, I know the drill. Until somebody proves me wrong, like I'm picking them to win it." Now
Exactly.
I'm curious to hear now, Joe. I have a couple of ideas who I might be picking behind the Buccaneers, but I would like for you to open up this conversation. Who do you have behind Tampa Bay? Because between the Falcons, Panthers, and Saints, I can make an argument for any one of those 3 teams. But who do you think? Where's your head at right now?
Yeah, I'm going with the Saints, I think. I already
Yeah,
alluded to it earlier, but I mean, they've still got a veteran coaching staff with Sean Payton, and the rest of his crew there. They've still got a top offensive line, and they've got Alvin Kamara. So if Jameis Winston can, open up the offense a little bit more with his arm strength, that's obviously superior to Drew Brees's. That might help out in the run game with Kamara. I just worry about, Kamara's effectiveness in the passing game moving forward because that's been such a huge part of their offense. And, he's not, Jameis is not,
right.
that type of quarterback like Drew Brees was. On top of that, they don't have Michael Thomas for at least the first 6 weeks of the season. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. And I mean, they lost a lot of pieces. So, I could definitely see the Saints spiraling and having a bad year. But I just think that, there is still enough talent that Sean Payton can get out of these guys to, get second place in this division. I don't think they'll be competing for a playoff spot. I don't think any of these other 3 teams are going to be particularly good. But if any of them could, I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers or the Falcons ended up having a better year than the Saints, just because I can definitely see a path where the Saints have a terrible season,
Yeah.
and the wheels just kind of fall off completely.
Yeah, I think you nailed it too. I think having Kamara as well as a very nice offensive line, should everybody still stay healthy, this is still going to be a team that's going to win 6, 7, 8 games. Now it's like, can Jameis Winston take them to that next level, or maybe they are 8, 9, 10 wins and competing for a playoff spot? That's to be determined. I have been reading that a couple of executives and head coaches have been saying that this could be one of his best years ever because they were talking about how Bruce Arians' system is very uh, risky, saying that, yeah, we'll throw 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, but we're also probably going to throw 30 interceptions with Jameis Winston, where
Right.
Sean Payton's is more of a controlled offense. And certainly when you do have Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, I mean, they also have Ty Montgomery listed as a wide receiver. He's been a running back slash wide receiver as well. So definitely some versatility over there. Defense is going to be tough. I don't know if I'm ready to pick the Saints number 2. I think they might be struggling a little bit more, as you alluded to. I think I'm riding with the Panthers, Joe. I don't know why, but I think that they're probably going to get second place in the division. Maybe even compete for a wild card spot. That might be tough to say based on what we talked about the NFC West last week, but I'm kind of buying into everything that's happening down in Carolina.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that as well. I mean, I think we've talked about it with Sam Darnold earlier. That's really the big question, how good can he be for Carolina, or how much better can he be than what we've seen out of him for the Jets the past couple of years.
Right.
I mean, this is a team that, Christian McCaffrey is now healthy, and they've got two very good wide receivers in Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Both of them had 1,000 yards last year with Teddy Bridgewater
Right.
throwing to them. And this is a team that spent a lot of draft picks on the defense recently. It's young, they're hungry. I can definitely see the Panthers having a good season, and competing with the Saints. It's tough. I haven't seen it yet out of this out of Matt Rule and his coaching staff, out of Sam Darnold, or out of this defense. I feel like there's a lot of potential with the Panthers, and I agree. I definitely have a better feeling about the Panthers than I do the Saints. It's just you know it's like I said, seeing is believing. We've seen Sean Payton,
Right.
win games with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston when Drew Brees gets injured, and I mean with Teddy Bridgewater as well. So who's to say that he can't do that over a whole season? So it'll be interesting. But I do think that those two teams are. I mean, even the Falcons could surprise us.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the least likely, but I wouldn't be shocked as well with them. I mean, Matt Ryan's, still a great quarterback, and Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts, it still, has a recipe to be a very good offense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And going back to Carolina, like you said, I mean, I like that offense. I like Sam Darnold in this system, especially Joe Brady is still there. And we all know that he's very good with the passing game and everything like that. Christian McCaffrey is now healthy. They drafted Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State, who was preseason Heisman contender and still generally was last year for Oklahoma State, one of the more elite backs in the country. So you add that to the mix with Christian McCaffrey. You got Shi Smith from South Carolina, Terrence Marshall from LSU, who's familiar with the system, as well as also having DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And look, I have Robbie Anderson's stats up here right now. His final year with the Jets with Sam Darnold as quarterback, 52 receptions, 96 targets, about 800 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was probably Sam Darnold's number one target in New York.
Yeah.
And last year in Carolina, he had 40 more targets. So he went from 96 to 136, and his receptions went from 52 to 95. So 40 more targets, basically 40 more receptions, and he got 1,100 yards. Now, touchdowns weren't there, but hey, pair him up with Sam Darnold, a weapon that he's familiar with in this offense. Definitely excited. You alluded to that as well, Joe. The young defense that they've been drafting. So I'm very excited for what's cooking in Carolina, for sure. And then, yeah, you said it about the Falcons too. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they also were somewhat of a competitive team. I mean, and I've been saying for gambling the last couple of years that I'm always like, well, they had Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley and this person and this
Right.
person and this person. Whereas now we aren't saying that they have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley, whoever. Now we're saying, all right, they got Calvin Ridley, they got Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst, and they got Mike Davis. They don't. I mean, Russell Gage, pretty decent second wide receiver, very serviceable. Not the best, but hey, they got new head coach Arthur Smith, who saw with the Titans offense. I imagine they're going to be running a very similar offense, running Mike Davis a little bit, making sure Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst get open with the play action. They brought in Tajay Sharp, who's familiar with the system as well. So I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if they were good, but I think they might be looking at another last place finish in the South.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you there, Tim. You might have convinced me about the Panthers a little bit. I might have to, readjust that one. I mean, it's it's a projection, but I
Yeah,
really think that Sam Darnold is better than what we've seen out of him with the Jets and Adam Gase. I mean, going from Adam Gase to Joe Brady, I mean that's got to be like night and day, right? For a quarterback.
look what happened to Tannehill. Tannehill left
Yeah,
Adam Gase, then he was named the starting quarterback in like week 8, week 9, a couple of years ago for Tennessee. And I think in fantasy he's been like the best, if not top 3, top 5, and even like his personal record and going to the playoffs back to back years, AFC Championship one year. Like he's been one of the better quarterbacks after leaving Adam Gase's system.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited for the Eagles to come down to Charlotte and play. I'll be
Absolutely.
at that game, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch in person.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully the Eagles can tighten up the defense because I just named off a bunch of weapons, and I mean with Christian McCaffrey, you're going to have a tight defense anyways when you play the
Yeah.
Panthers. But Joe, yeah, it seems like like I said, we already talked about the South. Are there any other thoughts you might have on the AFC South or NFC South? Generally, I mean, we the way we were playing this out, we were like, these are not only did we talk about them, but these are probably the two easiest to talk about.
Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in my mind. I mean, you know, I can see people thinking that the Colts are, ready to make that jump, but as an Eagles fan, seeing Wentz up close, the last couple of years, I just don't think that it's going to happen. Um, so it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, these divisions have a lot of really exciting teams, except for the Texans, and things to look forward to in the future. So it'll be fun to watch how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, I'm all wrapped up on the South, and I think that'll do it for today's episode, Joe. But if you guys haven't watching already, hit that thumbs up button to like this video and subscribe to the channel. On the next episode, we are going to be talking about our both respective divisions, the NFC East and the AFC North. And we're going to have a bunch more episodes coming. Then after that, we got our preseason predictions as well as our week 1 pick, and then we'll do our week 1 picks later. So, man, Joe, we are ready to ramp up and talk some football. Any final words on your end?
Hey, that's all I got. I'm excited to talk about the Eagles on the next one.
Woo! All right, Betty. Well, that's Joey D over there, and it's really Timmy B. And have a great day. Blah blah. I can't speak today. Industries. But anyways, have a great day, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.